right?
Yeah.
And about this particular case, the brain tumor, the gentleman with the brain tumor, the recurring brain tumor, but we spoke also about brachytherapy in general.
Right.
So obviously regarding internal radiation, the fact that brachytherapy has been around for quite a few years, and now, if you will, this new frontier is now, I guess, brain tumors, which is the case that led us to this call, this article. Let's talk. Well, but yeah, generally, can you talk about brachytherapy? How it has developed into what we are now seeing is for dealing with brain tumors?
Sure. So who's on the call? Is it just Baptist?
Yes, it's just all of us on the marketing team.
All right. So, well, brachytherapy, or brachytherapy, as I call it, has been around for almost 100 years. Because initially the radioactive sources were simply that, natural occurring radiation sources like cobalt-60 that were or created radioactive elements that emitted energy. And the difference between brachytherapy, where the source is implanted in the body, it basically means therapy at a short distance. That's where brachy comes from. And teletherapy, which is where you lie on the table and the big machine spins around you to deliver the radiation, that's teletherapy, so therapy at a distance. So most modern radiation therapy, 99.9% of it is teletherapy, and a small portion of it is brachytherapy. Brachytherapy is used most commonly, for example, in the prostate, where it's probably most frequently practiced. There are other applications for it in recurrent gynecological tumors or breast tumors, not really for liver or soft tissue sarcomas, and then brain. So I started working with brachytherapy for brain tumors back in the 80s when I was a fellow at UCSF, 1988. And the program there was started actually in 1984 by Philip Gutin, who was a neurosurgeon at UCSF. So I did my second year fellowship with Phil and learned how to do a type of brachytherapy for malignant gliomas with an isotope called I-131, and the stereotactic procedure that involved applying a stereotactic frame, drilling small holes, passing catheters with dummy seeds, taking x-rays after the dummy seeds were placed, digitizing the potential dose distribution, and then figuring out how many sources, what spacing you needed to get a good conformal dose distribution. The use of brachytherapy for malignant, recurrent, newly diagnosed gliomas and recurrent malignant gliomas was proven not to be more effective than some of the newer chemotherapy agents. We essentially abandoned the use of brachytherapy for recurrent malignant gliomas and newly diagnosed malignant gliomas back in the early 2000s. There was a prospective randomized trial that was done by the Brain Tumor Study Group for newly diagnosed glioblastoma, where the patients were operated, then implanted, then radiated. And there was no difference between that group and the group that had surgery and then just standard radiation therapy. So that put the nail in the coffin for upfront brachytherapy for newly diagnosed malignant glioma. The real, I think, opportunity or application for the brachytherapy is for brain metastases, which are when the tumors are very large, too large for radiosurgical treatment, and the patient's in trouble, then you can, even with a newly diagnosed brain metastasis, you can remove the large one and do the implant at the same time as the operation, so the patient doesn't need any follow-up treatment after that.
And I'm sorry, that's what I know Dr. Kotecha mentioned, that there has to be basically surgery or a cavity, if you will, and then determine whether do a pathology report even during the surgery to determine if there's still malignancy.
Right. So that's very true for recurrent tumors, which is the most common application, but same for a newly diagnosed tumor. It's not as difficult with a newly diagnosed tumor. It's obviously it wasn't there before. You send pathology, it's a tumor, you can do the implant. Where the patients had prior treatment, whether that be surgery, radiation therapy, radiosurgery, and you think the imaging features are consistent with recurrence, then for sure you have to send a intraoperative biopsy specimen to confirm the presence of recurrent tumor, because you wouldn't want to implant radiation necrosis with more radiation energy, because you just make the problem worse.
Okay. And I know I was reading about, and I know gamma tile will probably stay away from mentioning it specifically, but it is a very specific delivery method, if you will, a device, which was approved for, I believe, certain brain tumors in just this past January.
So I have to tell you that there's nothing novel about the gamma tile except for the carrier. That's it.
Except for what? I'm sorry?
Except for the carrier that it's in. It's
right.
A collagen sponge carrier.
Right.
We've frequently used iodine 125 sources for brachytherapy, either as single seeds or in vicryl suture strands to do the implants in the past. When I left UCSF in February 2020, that was one of the last operations I did in that month was for recurrent brain metastasis. And we switched from iodine 125 to cesium 131 on the basis of theoretical modeling of resection cavity constriction and the dose to the surrounding brain. The motivation to do that study was a publication by the Cornell group where they were using cesium 131. We were still using iodine 125, and they claimed they had no necrosis, but they had no data to back up that, not that I saw, that was that would back up the concept where the dose to surrounding brain was less with the cesium. So we did the theoretical modeling. In fact, it was true. Mm-hmm. As soon as we did the analysis, we immediately stopped using iodine and switched to cesium.
Okay.
Now, cesium is a different isotope, same energy of photon that's emitted compared to I-125. It's just that it has a much shorter half-life. So as opposed to, it's 6 days as opposed to 60 days. So that means that the activity and dose rate declined by 50% in 6 days as opposed to waiting for 60 days. So there are advantages to the cesium. The cesium delivers the dose over a much shorter period of time, so there could be a higher biologic effect on tumor tissue with the cesium. And I don't know of any results that prove that there's a significant difference between the two isotopes in terms of clinical outcome. There is a theoretical basis why the toxicity should be less with cesium as compared to iodine, and that was on the basis of the paper that we published.
Okay, let's go to the patient, the brain tumor case where Dr. Kotecha talked a little bit about it, and I mean how you got involved in that surgery. And I know it involved gamma tiles, and he actually showed me one up close, and it was like little tiny capsules, if you will, encased in this wafer, if you will, tile. Which has its benefits, I guess, to some extent with this case. Can you talk a little bit about this case? The first, I believe, in Florida, if not.
Yeah, it was a patient, was a woman that had a recurrent brain metastasis from lung cancer and had prior treatment with surgery and radiosurgery, and then there was evidence of recurrence in a short period of time. So that would be the situation where you would use it. I think I sent Katie 18 publications on brachytherapy earlier today. Mm-hmm. That I've written over the years. The reason I got involved in it is because I'm the old dog, and so I have the experience, and Dr. Seelman's never done a case. So in order to be able to do it independently, I have to watch him or do 5 cases. There's nothing dramatic about doing the implant. It's really pretty straightforward. So the one thing I don't honestly want to do is make it out that GammaTile is some new novel form of therapy, because it isn't. It's a new company.
Right.
They're touting it as like the greatest thing since sliced bread, which I have a problem with.
Right.
So we have to be really careful about how we,
how do we characterize then this case as? I mean, we're saying first in Florida. Is that because of GammaTile, or is it because it was a unique delivery method, if you will, of brachytherapy for brain tumor?
Here's what it is. It's you're in marketing.
Yes.
Right?
You sure?
That's what it was all about. It was GammaTile marketing. Had nothing to do with anything else, really.
Right.
And there's GammaTiles are 10 times as expensive as a suture, as the sources in Strand.
Right.
And that's the only time I've done over 200 cases in the past 20 years, 30 years. And I found it in some ways more cumbersome to use the GammaTile because the carrier swells up, and I didn't find it as user friendly.
Really? Okay.
And there are advantages to a well-organized, a company that sets it up properly, trains individuals around the country, sets up a registry, et cetera, et cetera. So, and, I'm a fan of brachytherapy, so I think the fact that it's being used more is good for the patients. It's not me. I mean, it's not that, just because I had an interest in brachytherapy in the past, I think everybody should be using it. But I do think that it does have definite advantages, and there's a really long tail survival for about the third quartile of patients. And if you use the brachytherapy in a recurrent setting, not only killing the tumor, but you're probably killing some normal tissue around the edge, radiation necrosis, and that probably sets up an inflammatory response that as a secondary bystander effect, there's an immunological effect, and that may have something to do with the long-term tumor control.
If we don't mention GammaTile at all, if we take it out of the picture, was this still I mean, we say first in Florida, but that was referring to the GammaTile, correct?
Correct. I doubt it's the first brachytherapy case in Florida, but I don't know.
But regarding
can we confirm, is it the first brachytherapy at Baptist Health?
Yes.
Yeah,
that way.
John, that's definitely a check mark there, but I still want to see how we can weave in something else. Although I know that it is marketing for GammaTile, I do see value in it. Just the fact that we're using, I mean, is the technology in any way, shape, or form top of the line at all, or do we think it is, like you were saying before, it's actually not even that great? I mean, are you?
No, it's just a different carrier. It's more convenient in terms of the implant. That's all.
Same. Evolving, technology, and this is one.
Yeah, evolving technology in terms of the carrier, not the anti-tumor effect.
Right. Because he mentioned, Dr. Kotecha, over the years using seeds or ribbons, if you will, or
Right.
So, but I mean, by the way, Dr. Kotecha said the patient was willing to speak about this. If you want to go with a patient testimonial, but that's up to you guys. I don't know.
Yeah. So 80, so fine with me.
Yeah.
I think what we have to be. I like to be. My wife complains about this, and I'm very data driven, which means I'm black and white. I'm flat. I don't get, emotional about stuff. I just deal with the facts. I'm really good when there's a crisis, but I'm not so good when something great happens because I'm still the same. So she can't tell whether I'm happy or she says, but I like to deal with the facts. And if there's published data, and there are other people that have published on their experience after me, and I think largely because of the work that we did at UCSF over 25 years, people finally realized, hey, maybe we should try this because the other stuff is, not working, and there's certain cases that are appropriate for brachytherapy that are not appropriate for radiosurgery, for example. So those are the cases where the tumor is too big in dimension to be safely treated with a single session or 5-session radiosurgery, whereas if you're operating to remove the mass and then do the implant, it might be safer, more effective. However, the brachytherapy is an invasive procedure, right? You got to have an open operation, you have to have anesthesia, you got to stay in the hospital. Radiosurgery, you come in as an outpatient procedure. Come in, go home, same day, a couple hours later, you're done. So, big difference.
But we can say that in terms of brain and neck cancers, or brain tumors in this case, it's more evolving. It's the very latest frontier of brachytherapy, if you will. Since over the years, prostate and and OBGYN, GYN cancers and
so
such, it's been.
What I would say is that it provides for a more organized network and method of delivering brachytherapy across multiple institutions.
Okay. All right. Anything else we want to say about brachytherapy?
Let me see. Hang on one second. Let me see if I
John, I do think for this particular story, we should focus on the technology and not the patient.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll talk about the first in Florida and that claim.
Yeah, because I think the brain, being a brain tumor, and obviously my MNI involved, and Dr. McDermott, and yeah, no, absolutely.
And Dr. McDermott will obviously, send it over for your review and approval too, so you can give it your blessing.
Yeah. Okay. What the hell?
I think for the health consumer out there, they understand, basic radiation therapy
yeah.
And then that this is internal radiation, which they may not realize has been around a long time.
Yeah.
And this is the latest, most evolving area, and we're on top of it. And with Dr. McDermott here, even more so. So.
Do you guys think we should tweak those social questions to be more what is the difference between brachytherapy and teletherapy, instead, and maybe do like the pros and cons or differences?
Those are two terms that are not well known in for health.
Maybe go to basics, like what is brachytherapy?
What is this versus what is?
Mm-hmm.
It's traditional internal radiation, external radiation, if you will. I know it's those are rudimentary terms, but most people don't understand brachytherapy versus teletherapy. Teletherapy sounds even like something else, like telemedicine.
Right.
So we got to be, from the editor-writer here,
right,
and former journalist, we have to speak to the health consumer out there.
So do we want to move, John, did you get sufficient information for your blog story?
Oh, I'm fine. I mean, if you all want to do some, for video, that's fine. I'm fine with
what you have.
For my purposes, yeah, I'm fine. If I have any questions, I'll email Dr. McDermott, but
Great.
I think I'm good.
Okay. And then we can go on to the social video. Dr. McDermott, for this, we're going to film you. George is a videographer from our team. He's filming this. So we'll just ask you a couple of questions, like basic questions that we want really concise answers. And this really is geared for the layperson. On social, this would be posted on Instagram. And so what we would like is just kind of like what is brachytherapy, and we're going to use, while you're talking, some of the photos that we took in the OR, as well as a little bit of B-roll or some video footage that we were able to get from Rachel Evers. So the questions we're going to ask you are super basic. John will ask you the questions. It's, the first question is, what is brachytherapy? And in the most concise way, just answer the question. And then John, you have two or three more questions, something short, and we'll have our video producers make it into like a very small 30-second clip that we'll post on social.
Okay.
John, whenever you're ready.
For brachytherapy, not the other
Wait 1 minute.
Not meningioma.
Oh, okay. We'll wait. Yeah, we're going to do the brachytherapy first, John, and then we'll get into the meningioma one.
Okay.
And Gabby, correct me if I'm wrong. The meningioma was going to be a blog post as well, or was that strictly social?
It's going to be a blog post as well, and then we're going to tie in the 2 published books that he just recently published, and mention that as well.
Yeah, we can do the, what do you call it? Be a Q&A blog article. Right. We introduction, and then the Q&A is probably, it serves like really helps the reader, get the Q&A and all the resources.
Right.
I'm downloading some a talk that I gave.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to share with you in a second. I'm putting it on a disk drive, and I can Dropbox it to Katie because it's too big to send, I think.
Right.
But it's finishing up here.
Perfect. And then I'll share it with the group.
With the high-speed Baptist guest.
Oh, yeah, that's a story of our lives in marketing. Yeah, we deal with that all the time.
You're getting there. He's a customer.
So do you, I'll wait on that. So you're emailing it to me, Dr. McDermott?
I'm bringing it up. I'm going to share screen just for a second with you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, here. Okay, so it's there. Now I can just drag it over here. Okay, let's see if it went over. Yep, it's there. Okay. Hang on 1 second. All right. Don't encrypt. All right. All right, so let me just configure this. Takes a few seconds. I'm getting used to this now. Okay, did you see my slide?
Yep.
Okay, so this was at European meeting 2014.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was reporting in 25-year experience then.
Jeez.
So indications for brachytherapy: large solitary brain metastasis, recurrent or atypical malignant meningioma, other rare things. This was one of the first papers that we did, 2007, newly diagnosed brain metastases, a 2-institution experience. These were the results. Very good local control. You can see the local control is right where the tumor is very good. The reason the brain control is bad is because the patients, 35% of them develop new metastases from their primary tumor in the first year of follow-up. So this is a melanoma metastasis, a long surviving patient of mine. He's still alive with multiple melanoma brain metastases. He's had immunotherapy as well for a systemic disease, but you can see the little dots. You see my pointer moving around? Yeah. So those are the titanium capsules. And apparently I'm the only neurosurgeon that's ever been to the manufacturing plant in Washington State to watch these things being made. And most of the substrate for the cesium comes from Russia. So it comes as radioactive barium sulfate, which they do some kind of processing to end up with the cesium. But you can see that the distribution of the sources is very similar to the resection cavity.
Right. Yeah, no.
Dr. McDermott, so the little dots that I'm seeing, the titanium stuff that you were referring to, is that like the gamma tile? We would see it also in an imaging study, the gamma tile, that kind of? Yes. Okay, but this is another delivery system.
Right. So these are the same sources. They look like metal long grains of rice. They're the same in the suture, the same in the gamma tile. The only thing about gamma tile is the carrier.
Got it.
And these were.
And sorry, just to reiterate, the gamma tile really isn't your preference. Like, you don't really like that delivery system, or you're just like, it's fine.
It's fine, but it's 10 times as much money. It's ridiculous.
It's just too expensive. Okay, got it. Noted. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm understanding now.
And then the company was started by a bunch of neurosurgeons and radiation oncologists who are all investors, and it's all dirty as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, got it.
We got it.
I don't think Dr. Kotecha had that inside scoop, right, John? When you
No,
interviewed him?
no, he's well, no, of course not. He doesn't, but
Plus, he's 25 years younger than me.
yeah.
Now we're going way back. Okay.
And me too, younger than me. But he did say, no, see those things inside the tile? Those are the capsules. Those are, that's the thing. Yeah. So they're enveloped in this wafer, if you will. And yeah, I mean, he saw it as beneficial in some respect, but what's inside is what counts, right? I mean.
Yeah. So here's a source right here. See this little black spot?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the titanium capsules. Here they are. This guy had a recurrent a newly diagnosed lung carcinoma. I operated for radiation damage. I think the guy lived like 12 years or something. He died of something, a different tumor he died of, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unheard of. So this is for brain metastasis, kind of a review article, 2009. So you can see we've been at it for a while. These are some of the data. These are temporary higher activity, higher energy sources. And then you can see the permanent ones are lower activity. And all the new implants are done with permanent implants, okay?
Right.
And this was the Weill Cornell. This is Gabrielle, a radiation oncologist, said there's no radiation necrosis. But, there is. But you just have to, small number of patients, they didn't follow the patients long enough. So they'll see it. Okay, so it works for large brain mets. And then also can be used for recurrent high-grade meningiomas. So we used it for recurrent grade 2s and recurrent grade 3s after standard treatment.
What does high grade mean? High grade?
Grade 2 or grade 3. Initial treatments for grade 2 meningioma atypical surgery plus or minus radiation therapy. Grade 3 is always surgery plus radiation therapy.
Sorry to interject. I'm thinking now, like my brain is thinking out loud, because we came in with the First in Florida angle, about brachytherapy. I do think though, why are we doing a story about brachytherapy now? Like I think what I want to understand too is the evolution of brachytherapy. It's been going on forever, right? You've been doing brachytherapy forever. Is there anything new or unique that's happening now?
No, it's all the company.
Yeah.
It's all
but we can say it continues to evolve, and now with Dr. McDermott here, who's done all this research and all this for years, has
brought brachytherapy to Baptist Health. We had not done it before,
exactly.
Right, John? So that's really the angle here, and how we are bringing brachytherapy to the South Florida community, here at Baptist Health.
When it comes to this level, I mean the brain tumors and cases, which is the fastest evolving area of brachytherapy, I guess, or at least the one that's evolving now the most.
Yeah. And there's many various different companies that provide delivery systems for brachytherapy, such as the gamma tile. And the technology has evolved in a sense where I think it used to be different, and now it's being absorbed by the body. Like, is the technology evolving too?
No. You've drunk the party.
No, I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I didn't. I just want to understand the technology, and if not them, but everybody else is evolving too to be like that, or no?
Nothing about the radioactive source is absorbed. It's in titanium. It's an inert metal. It doesn't oxidize. It remains there forever.
Right.
So it ain't going anywhere. The only thing that absorbs is the carrier.
Which in this case is a tile.
The suture or the absorbable collagen sponge doesn't make any difference.
Right. And the tile is absorbed in this gamma tile.
I'm understanding now. Okay.
Yeah.
So
this is a picture. Yeah, you see me with my lead vest. And then we had lead-lined gloves. So I have a thyroid shield on, lead-lined glasses. These are my loops, but it has regular glass in it. So, and then these are the gloves that are impregnated with something that I'm not sure what it is. I don't believe it's lead, but maybe, I don't think so. Some other heavy metal, like barium, probably. And and then, gown up, and here's the carrier for the individual sources. That's what they look like. So the inside this seed is either a small 3 resin balls or a little strip with the radioactive cesium embedded in that material. That's placed inside a cylinder of titanium, and then they laser weld on 2 caps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is how big they are. This is the way you implant the individual sources. So this was the carrier when the sources were not in suture; they were individual. And this is a big implant I did for recurrent malignant meningioma, and every one of those little white dots is a digitized radioactive source.
Wow, that's a lot.
And you can see that the dose distribution around the cavity is very conformal, meaning that the dose of the radiation therapy matches the shape of the resection cavity, which is good. So here's the post-op CT, and that's the dose gradients that you generate. And you can see on the MR scan, see the little sources here? See all these little black things that look like ants?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the titanium capsules. I don't know how many I put in here, but a lot.
That is, wow.
And so we had a 25-year experience, and in 25 years, we'll see how many people. I think it's 42. Yeah. This is the distribution. And you can use all this information. It's all published, so you can use it.
Fantastic. No, yeah, Katie has it. She'll send it to me. Send me a link.
Some of this stuff is beyond the scope of what the patients need to know.
So 25 years from the time before you came here to MNI at UCSF?
I was 30 years at UCSF before I came here.
So that the Golden Gate in the background is like home for you.
Yeah. I used to drive across that every day for how many years?
Lord.
Shit.
Yeah.
15 years before I moved to the city. 15, 17.
I was there a couple years ago. Yeah.
I drove across that bridge on September 11th, 2001.
Oh, wow.
At 70 miles an hour, and the speed limit was 45. And a Porsche passed me doing probably 95 or 100.
Is this after the news got out, or?
Yeah, we were driving out of the driveway, and my neighbor was a United Airlines pilot, and I heard on the radio, and I said, what was her name? Barbara. She was coming out to get the newspaper with a cup of coffee in her hand, and her 2 golden retrievers, and I rolled down the window, and I said, you got to go inside and watch the news. A plane hit the Twin Towers. She just dropped her coffee cup, like just let it go, and ran back in the house.
Wow.
And I was driving my oldest boy, who was, I think, in grade 1 or 2 or 3 or something, across the bridge. So these are the survival results. Radiation necrosis 19, a lot of overall complication rate 24%, but these were heavily pre-treated patients, irradiated, operated,
Right.
And so we wanted to develop a trial for this. We had the trial written and approved. It's written and approved, and we are the Steve Bronstein, the radiation oncologist in the Cornell group. We're not wedded to GammaTile, so we can do our own registry if people want to use whatever source they want. Now, if GammaTile people want to create their own registry specific to their product, which is fine with me, I'm happy to do it. I mean, if we have patients on a protocol, I'm willing to use the GammaTile as long as MCI wants to pay for it.
Can we speak to that, Katie? You think we don't have formal plans yet.
They don't have them done yet, but I have the protocol. Our protocol's written. I shared it with them.
Okay.
Sorry, say one more time, John.
So plans for a trial regarding brachytherapy and meningiomas, malignant and.
We did one. We did our trial for recurrent atypical malignant meningiomas. That's it, not Mets. Yeah, here, let's see. Oh, it's only 14 megabytes, Katie, so there it goes.
Great.
Send in.
Perfect. I'll forward it on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That was very interesting. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
John, do you want to go ahead and ask those simple questions
Yeah,
for the brachytherapy for social?
Does George need any adjustments or are we doing the image or just the audio? Or
I can get rid of my background.
well, it's up to George, our expert.
Yeah, if you can get rid of the background and bring back your
office background.
Miami reality.
Miami realm.
The hell?
Stop sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to stop sharing first.
Here we go.
There you go.
There you go. You wanted to move the.
Now, if I turn off my room lights, my face is brighter.
Try that. Let's try it.
Yeah, it's a little dark.
Whoa!
I think we're. Oh wait.
Hold on, let's see.
Guys, we need to give him
I think that's better, isn't it?
a
That
little
is better.
credit.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
Not brain surgery.
Can you tilt the camera
Okay.
down just a little bit? Just tilt the camera down just a little bit.
I want to know when Gabby's coming to my office for the real face.
Gabby, you need to check it out. He has a skull with like some trail mix inside, like a skull half skull.
Oh, I can't wait to check that out. I have to stop by.
And bring
And
your
it's
drive.
decorated. It's probably the best decorated office at Baptist Health South Florida.
I want Katie,
Physician office.
Gabby's
That's
got to
it.
bring your driver's license. Got to check her ID.
Dr. McDermott messes with Gabby all the time.
Okay.
So that's perfect. So just keep the answers nice, concise. Remember, it's for layman's
Yes.
individuals, regular people.
Yes, yeah, I know we will spend a lot of time reading medical journals and peer-reviewed articles, but this is for the the average health consumer out there.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we'll just start with, let me see if I have the actual. Okay. So what is brachytherapy? I guess is the first question, right?
Yeah, well, brachytherapy is a form of radiation treatment where the energy is delivered at a short distance. So typically there's a radioactive isotope contained in a small capsule, which can be implanted into the tumor site in the body. So the radiation source is within the tumor. The radiation source is not at a distance, shooting the radiation beams at the tumor from a distance.
That's very good. What do you think, Georgia? You good? Okay, now, why is brachytherapy beneficial for brain tumor patients?
Brachytherapy can be used for large, newly diagnosed brain metastases, recurrent brain metastases after prior forms of therapy, including surgery, radiation. It can be used for recurrent meningiomas that are of high grade, and it provides us another alternative for treatment once some of the other therapies have failed. So it's an additional form of treatment that I think is new to at least our practice here at this institution, and I have a lot of experience in it over 30 years. So I'm delighted that we're doing it now.
And okay, now the third question you had, Katie, was about gamma tile, but we're not gonna on the list. You don't want to talk about that, right? Or
I think we could skip that one, John.
okay, no, that's regarding brachytherapy. I told you want to go into meningiomas now, or
Should we talk about what other thank you for missing anything else for brachytherapy?
okay, let's say more. I guess the more traditional brachytherapy that's been practiced for many years. Can you talk about for the prostate cancer or other cancers?
Yeah, that would be getting a little bit out of my field.
Oh,
but
okay.
I can tell you that one of the first neurosurgeons to use a form of brachytherapy was a neurosurgeon in London, Ontario, Canada, who was actually a vascular surgeon. And when he was very early on in his practice, in the late 50s and early 60s, he tried it. And he tried it for malignant gliomas. It didn't seem to be any more beneficial than the standard form of radiation therapy, so he stopped using it. I think one of the things that the patients need to be aware of is that because the radioactive source is implanted into the tumor cavity, they are safe. They are not excreting radioactive material in their urine or in their stool. The skull is one of the best absorbers of radiation therapy. That's why we put concrete around the radiation facilities to absorb energy. And the biggest component of concrete is calcium, which is the biggest component of the bone in your skull. So both are very good absorbers. In the short term after the surgery, there can be a period of time where the patient has to wear a lead-lined cap in order to absorb some of that additional energy when the radiation dose rate and activity is at its highest. And with the isotope that we're using now, the half-time or half-life of the isotope is only 6 days. So in 6 days' time after the implant, the radioactivity and radiation doses declined by 50%. 6 days later, it's a quarter of what it was when you did the implant, et cetera. So it's a very rapidly declining dose. And there's no way that the sources can be excreted outside of the body when they're used in the intracranial cavity.
That's a great answer for a question that how safe is it safe? Or how safe is it for the patient? And I think you got it all there. Anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, so there, whenever you're dealing with brachytherapy, the dose that you're delivering locally to the tissue is very conformal, meaning the distribution of the radiation matches the target shape, particularly if you've already removed the tumor and you're implanting the wall. And the dose gradients are very steep, and that means that the dose declines rapidly outside the implanted volume. And it follows the same rules as any energy source, radiation source like the sun, that the energy declines with 1 over the square of the distance from the source. So it's really rapid fall off. There are side effects from the treatment. If you've had prior treatment and you put more radiation inside, then you could damage some normal tissue, but the damage rate, complication rate appears to be acceptably low. And the cases where we're using the brachytherapy, the alternatives are not good.
Do you want to move on to meningiomas, Katie? If possible?
I think we're good.
Okay.
We needed.
Quick, brief answers for these, Doctor, even briefer if you can.
Yeah. Yes.
For the average health consumer.
Yes. No.
I'm sorry. Okay, that's good. Well, okay, what should the public know about meningiomas? I mean, what are the primary facts that the public should know about meningiomas?
Sure. Meningiomas are the most common primary brain tumor in adults over the age of 35 until death. Approximately 70% of these are low-grade benign behaving tumors. About 30%, 25% are a slightly higher grade, more aggressive. They tend to recur. They need radiation therapy. And they're a very common tumor. They're found frequently, incidentally, for example, after a concussion, CT scans done for other reasons. And lo and behold, there's a tumor that looks like a meningioma. Most of the meningiomas at diagnosis do not require treatment. So if the patient is asymptomatic, they don't have symptoms specific to the tumor site, and there's no documented growth, then there's no role for intervention. The patient can be safely observed.
Okay. I think you answered maybe 2 questions there. That's good. What is the most common misconception that people may have about meningiomas, if there is one?
Yeah, I think there's when you tell a patient that they have a benign tumor, they think that surgical treatment will be curative, and that's not always the case. And we have options for treatment. So if we're following a patient who's asymptomatic and they either become symptomatic or we have documented radiographic growth, then there's a consideration for intervention or treatment. And there's different forms of treatment. Treatment includes surgery, radiation therapy, or radiosurgery at diagnosis. And each of those forms of treatment has a different risk profile. When the tumor recurs, and even 50% of benign tumors totally excised will recur 25 years after diagnosis. So the key thing is that if you treat a patient with a benign tumor, they have to be followed essentially for their lifetime to rule out recurrence.
Okay, great. What are common, if there are common symptoms?
So the most common symptoms for an adult patient with a brain tumor of any type are headache, seizures, progressive focal neurologic deficit. Well, what does that mean? That means if the tumor overlies your motor cortex, you develop weakness on the other side. If it's over your sensory cortex, you develop sensory symptoms. If it's over visual, you develop visual. And then the other one is change in personality or behavior. And that relates to the fact that the frontal lobe and temporal lobe are large parts of the brain, and they control mood, insight, judgment, personality, and behavior. So if you have a big tumor pressing on your frontal lobe, you'll have the so-called frontal lobe syndrome, which is apathetic, amotivational state, depressed mood, and those are the kind of symptom complexes that the patients show up with. So every headache is not a brain tumor. A headache that's present for 2 weeks, worse in the morning than evening, associated with nausea and vomiting, that's not normal.
Excellent, excellent. And if there are any, top risk factors for meningiomas?
So there are risk factors associated with the development of meningiomas. The majority, overwhelming majority, 90% or greater, are sporadic, meaning we don't know why they occur. As I mentioned, majority are benign. But there are risk factors, prior radiation therapy exposure. And this initially came from an experience with the repatriation of the Jewish population after World War II, where there were high numbers of individuals in camps and they developed fungal infections of the scalp because of, bad personal hygiene. And then we realized that 20 to 25 years later, they had a much greater likelihood of developing meningiomas. Fast forward now with childhood leukemias, for example, where the children are irradiated prophylactically between the ages of 3 to 7 if they have a leukemia. And now there's a national registry for those patients to be entered into, understanding that there's a 25-fold risk increase for the later development of meningioma. There are other associations with certain genetic syndromes like neurofibromatosis, non-causative links like breast cancer. Breast cancers are very common. Meningiomas are much less common, but they have similar genetic abnormalities. Doesn't mean that if you have breast cancer, you get a meningioma or vice versa. There's an association with thyroid tumors, association with fertility treatments, and an association with a family history, like 2 first-degree relatives with meningiomas might put you at a higher risk later in life for being diagnosed with one.
Okay. And I think you answered this briefly, how are meningiomas usually diagnosed?
Yeah, so it's, I would say that I don't know exactly what the distribution of discovery by chance versus symptomatic discovery is. I would say currently that the greatest proportion of patients are discovered by chance because of the wide availability of modern imaging, particularly with magnetic resonance imaging studies done for other reasons, that these tumors are frequently discovered.
Great. And the last one you may have answered somewhat, is surgery the primary treatment for meningiomas? What are other options? You want to just briefly?
Yes, so surgery is still considered the primary treatment for meningiomas, especially when the tumors are symptomatic. So if you came in with a seizure, first-time grand mal seizure as your initial presentation for meningioma, the meningioma itself is not the cause of the seizure. It's the effect of the meningioma on the adjacent normal brain that's causing the seizure. So if you remove the inciting culprit, so to speak, then you can reduce the likelihood of future seizures, and you can reduce the likelihood of an epilepsy syndrome, which means recurrent repetitive seizures in spite of medication. So there are some locations where surgery, like in the skull bases, can be very complicated and associated with a much higher risk profile than a meningioma that's on the surface of the brain up in the what we call the cranial vault. So basically, imagine above your ears all the way up. And so those ones are less risky than the ones that are in the base of the brain, where the arteries and nerves are entering and exiting the base of the skull.
Well, that's it. I covered all the questions, and we got much more than we needed for the quick social bites we're going to do, but I got plenty for the articles.
Well, I have one question. Just one. I just want a clean statement. Why should a person receive brachytherapy treatment at Baptist Health South Florida? So what makes Baptist Health South Florida, just a brief statement, Baptist Health offers the most experience, something like that.
Right. So I think one of the advantages we have at Baptist Health with the Miami Cancer Institute is the wide variety of treatment options and treatment delivery systems. It's unlike any place in the world that I've seen in terms of the radiation therapy facilities. And until I arrived, they didn't have anybody with experience doing brachytherapy. And so I'm happy to be able to add to the armamentarium of options for treatment for patients.
Fantastic. And we're happy you're here too. Anything else, guys?
I did want to add one more thing. Dr. McDermott, I know you are extremely well published with meningioma research. Can you tell us a little bit about how many papers you've published with regards to meningiomas?
Well, I think one of the advantages of being in an academic, there's pros and cons of being in an academic center. The pros are that you get to teach the future neurosurgical neurosurgeons of the not the world, but the country. So you're continuing your specialty. You get to be involved in clinical research more than basic science research. And you usually get the most difficult cases. So the easier ones, this is not always true, might tend to be done at a community setting, and with that huge experience that you collect over time, you have the opportunity to look back, see what you've done in the past, how can you make it better to improve the care of the future patients. You can be involved in clinical trials that provide unbiased information about the results, so that patient selection by the doctor. So my favorite thing to do is brachytherapy. Therefore, all my patients get brachy. That's not a good patient sample. So I think that over the years, I was able to. I had an interest in it. The con was that it was, as my family will tell you, a pretty big sacrifice for working hours, but I loved it. I mean, I don't regret it. And my wife has asked me whether, other people have asked me would I do it over again. The answer is yes, in a minute. And I think the great thing about surgery is you can have a major impact on somebody's life, and 98% of the time it's positive. 2% of the time it's not. And when you don't remember the good cases wherever the outcome went great, you remember the cases where something went wrong and there was a bad outcome. And in neurosurgery, a bad outcome can be really bad. So those are the cases that you go to bed at night thinking about, wake up in the middle of the night, wake up in the morning in the shower, driving to work, and it beats on you for depends, weeks, months, but it never leaves. You can remember like yesterday when you had to walk into that room and see that patient every day that was changed forever. because of some intervention. So it's tough. But on the other hand, there's always, 98% of the time it's the other way around. And the patients are, I think, terrified with the thought that you're going to operate on the thing that makes them human. Animals, dogs, cats, you name it, can walk around and do anything, but they can't communicate like we do. So if you think that you're about to be operated on the organ that's responsible for what makes you human, your vision, your speech language function, your motor function, sensory, memories, moods, all those things, it's like, it's terrifying. So it's hard for the patients to realize that it's safe, and the majority of the time that it works out really well. And we don't save patients' lives every day that they think we do. We're extending their lives and making them better. But it's rare that they go into the operating room, and if they didn't have the surgery, they're going to die immediately. So, I think one of the ways that we try and deal with that is to use a little tiny bit of appropriate, humor. It's okay to actually these days still put your hand on the shoulder of the patient, reassure them, and all that stuff, which is the human part of the art of medicine, and the science part is all the technology and robots and instruments and lasers, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, I think I think this year I might go over 500 peer-reviewed papers. Edited a couple of books on meningiomas. The last one took me 2 years to get through, but it's done. I think it's thanks to all the co-authors, it's a fabulous product.
Wow.
John, that's the book that we mentioned that we definitely want to mention in the blog post.
It's remarkable that you find time for all that writing as well.
Yeah,
that's
seriously.
You are committed.
And it's already on his profile, so we can just link directly to the book. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's awesome. Super cool.
Very good.
Did we also, John, I know we just have about 1 more minute. So is there anything else, Dr. McDermott, that you want to add?
No, I think I have some PBS interview next, right?
Oh, cool. She reached out. Good.
All right. On demand here. All right.
Yeah, he is. That is awesome. You're going to be sick of talking about meningiomas because I think the interview, is it about meningiomas, brain tumors?
Yeah. Well, you got it warmed up. You got warmed up here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Appreciate it. Everything.
Thank you.
Oh, who's that, George? Is that your son?
Yeah.
This is my daughter.
It's his daughter. She's only like, she's 6 months, right, George?
She's not even a year old. And Katie was kind enough. Katie's godmother, Katie, because she donates all the clothes that don't fit her daughters anymore. And I get all the redheads or the
We have truckloads. I have truckloads of stuff that I can give to George.
Whenever you bring a baby less than 1 year around a neurosurgeon, what does the neurosurgeon do?
I don't know. I'm on the edge of my seat here.
That's on the head.
What you call the soft spot in the front.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the window to the inside, which closes about anywhere between 9 and 24 months after birth.
Wow. There you go.
So, anyway.
That's true.
When you watch, imagine we were all like that at the beginning. And the reason that when the babies are little and they're stumbling around like, when they can't walk, the reason for that is partly learning, but their nervous system's not fully mature. So the nerve conduction pathways are not myelinated completely by the time of birth. So it takes a period of time postnatal for that to develop, which improves the function of the nervous system, and all the stuff that happens in the first few years of life is amazing. You take the baby's brain and look at it, and then you look at it at age 5. It's like the tree branches in the fall, winter versus the tree branches in the summer. It's amazing.
That's amazing. That's super cool.
Yeah.
It is.
Are you sure you didn't want to be a pediatric neurosurgeon?
No.
My daughter's really smart, so the nerves are getting together pretty quick because she's really smart.
Very good. Hey, George?
Yeah?
Why don't you call me in about 14 years, see how it's going?
Yeah.
I will.
I want to be on that call.
Check back.
Your daughter thinks that, You're the, like, meanest person in the world.
Oh,
All righty. Well, thank you, Dr. McDermott, for your time. Good luck with Penelope. I think it's just an intro interview. I don't think I was invited. It's totally fine. I don't think it's the actual PBS interview. It's probably her just kind of gauging topic.
Okay. All right.
She'll send me the script for review before.
All right. Bye.
thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.